I'm Teisha with Shalom TV's news update for Thursday, March the 20th, 2014. The Times of Israel reports that Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas was greeted in Ramallah today by hundreds cheering his return from talks in the United States with U.S. President Barack Obama. Palestinian news agency Wafa quoted Abbas as saying of the talks with the president, "We carried the deposit and we are guarding the deposit," saying, "You know all the conditions and circumstances, and I say to you that capitulating is not a possibility." It was not clear what exactly Abbas was referring to in his comments, but likely it had to do with his demands regarding land or the right of return of Palestinian refugees. Abbas also spoke to the president about the release of Palestinian prisoners by Israel when the two met at the White House. A Palestinian official said that Abbas had written previously to Obama to add Palestinian leader and convicted terrorist Marwan Barghouti to Israel's final prisoner release later this month, and that he repeated this demand during the White House meeting. Barghouti was imprisoned by Israel 10 years ago and sentenced to 5 life sentences and 40 years in jail for organizing a series of deadly suicide bombings and ambushes against Israel. As it is, the prisoner release, which Israel is scheduled to conduct on March the 28th, is a bone of contention at the moment, with Israel wanting to see commitment from the Palestinians towards extending peace talks beyond April the 29th, the deadline that U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry had put into place at the start of talks last summer. That was also when Israel agreed to the total of the 104 Palestinian security prisoners to be released as a gesture to get the talks off the ground.
Naval Special Forces.
Israeli Defense Minister Moshe Ya'alon apologized for remarks he made this week where he said the U.S. was portraying an image of, quote, feebleness on the international front, in particular in Ukraine and in negotiating with Iran. As we reported to you, there was strong backlash to Ya'alon's remarks from the U.S., and later yesterday, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry called Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu over the comments. Last night, Ya'alon apologized over the phone to his counterpart, U.S. Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel, saying that he had meant no offense to the U.S. and that strong ties between Israel and the U.S. was a top priority.
And the privileged position you accord.
The Anti-Defamation League presented German Chancellor Angela Merkel with the Joseph Prize for Human Rights yesterday in recognition of her abiding commitment to promoting and protecting human rights at home and abroad. Merkel was saluted for, among other things, her efforts to protect the human rights of Jews through her commitment to the security of the State of Israel, her defense of Jewish religious freedom in Germany, and her standing up for freedom of religion, freedom of speech, and the rule of law throughout Europe. Merkel was presented the award at the German Chancellery in Berlin by members of a leadership delegation currently traveling in Germany, led by ADL National Chair Barry Curtis Lusher and ADL National Director Abe Foxman. Foxman said of the German Chancellor, "Internationally, we have seen you time and again speak frankly to other leaders on human rights issues." He said, "We are fortunate that someone with such convictions leads one of the most important countries in the world, and that you have made clear to other leaders that their records on human rights play a weighty role in determining Germany's relations with their nations." Upon accepting the award, Merkel said that she appreciated the honor and took it as an incentive to continue to stand up for humanity and the rule of law, just as she said the ADL has done for over 100 years around the world. French news agency AFP reports that German police have arrested a former member of the SS who allegedly assisted in mass murder at the Auschwitz death camp. A 93-year-old man who served as a medic at Auschwitz was arrested for aiding and abetting the murder of prisoners who arrived at the death camp from Germany, Austria, France, Italy, the Netherlands, and Slovenia in September of 1944. World Jewish Congress President Ronald Lauder welcomed the arrest and thanked the German authorities for not relenting in their pursuit of those who murdered or aided in murdering thousands of people during World War II. Lauder said the prosecution of those who participated in terrible crimes sends a clear message that justice must be done no matter how late the hour. Israel's Knesset has approved the final readings of a bill aimed at helping Holocaust survivors. The new bill calls for an increase in annual aid to survivors that will improve their quality of life. It also shortens the deadline for claiming assets to 2017 and not 2021, so that assets that remain unclaimed by then will be used to help other survivors. The bill was proposed by Knesset members Merav Michaeli, Eliezer Stern, and Justice Minister Tzipi Livni, who said that despite the unquestionable importance of locating assets of Holocaust victims and transferring them to their heirs, there is also a clear obligation to assist survivors still living among us. Israel's President Shimon Peres extended holiday wishes and hopes for peace to the people of Iran on the occasion of Nowruz, the Persian New Year, which begins tonight. In interviews with Israel Radio's Persian language station and Radio Farda, Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty's Persian language station, Peres said both nations have a long history and expressed his hope for a peaceful future.
The Jewish people and the Persian people, the Iranian people, have a very long history, and we are going to have a longer future. We are old cultures. We learn history, we make history, we respect history, and we have really a heritage of values. We are not just two business people. We are two nations that respect culture, that respect human dignity, that call to live in peace and understanding.
The student government at Loyola University passed a resolution this week calling on the Chicago Jesuit University to divest from companies that do business in Israel. The Loyola Student Senate voted Tuesday to withdraw its investments from 8 companies that provide equipment to Israel for use in the West Bank. The companies are Caterpillar, General Electric, Hewlett-Packard, Raytheon, Elbit Systems, SodaStream, and Veolia. The measure was proposed by the Loyola Chapter of Students for Justice in Palestine. It passed 26-0 with 2 abstentions. The resolution was just the latest effort in the BDS, or Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions movement that seeks to delegitimize the State of Israel. Organizers of a recent visit to Israel of Harvard students is responding today to criticism over a controversial photograph that was taken of the students at the grave of Yasser Arafat. The students, none of whom are Jewish, are in Israel as part of the Harvard College Israel Trek. They visited the grave of the former Palestinian leader as part of a stop they made in Ramallah to gain some understanding of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, which was interpreted by some in the media as honoring Arafat. In a Times of Israel opinion piece today, the Trek's organizers, who grew up in Israel and many of whom served in the IDF, wanted to try and set the record straight. They said the students visited Ramallah this past Monday in order to meet with senior members of the Palestinian leadership, and that during the visit there, they were shown the Muqata, which is the headquarters of the Palestinian Authority, which includes the grave of Arafat, and photos were taken as part of the documentation of the trip. Those photos were picked up by some in the media. They said, as Israelis who love and care about the identity and future of Israel, we believe in the importance of nuanced and responsible engagement with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in general and the Palestinian narrative in particular. That said, let us be clear, the visit to the Muqata and to Arafat's grave was never about honoring Arafat's memory. Not for a second would we dream of, quote, paying respects, as some have suggested, to a man responsible for the death of countless Israelis. And that's Shalom TV's news update for Thursday, March the 20th, 2014. I'm Teisha Bader.